You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everyone? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with Zeona McIntyre, and we've got our 100th episode today.
Or Show 100.
Show 100. And if you know where that's from, Z, do you know what that's
might
from?
know who our guest is.
You might be able to guess who our guest is, and it is the one, the only, the man, Josh Dorkin. You know who Josh Dorkin is, Z? Did you know who he was before this episode?
I did, because Josh interviewed me on BiggerPockets, and I'm in his only book that he ever wrote. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was his only book, so that makes me feel extra special. You know who's not in that book, Craig? You.
Actually, I am in that book.
Are you? Gotcha.
Yeah. You didn't even read it, yeah.
Well, I read my part. I mean, I didn't read the whole thing, did I? I already know how to invest in real estate. Dang.
You don't know how to house hack, Z. Come on now.
I do.
Of course you do know how to house hack. You do. Well, yeah, we got Josh on here today. It's kind of a special contribution to the real estate space, to the community. And we just thought it was very fitting to have the founder of BiggerPockets, kind of the central hub of real estate investing, on the show to kind of bring it together. And yeah, Josh and I, I met Josh back when I was working at BiggerPockets. He hired me, and I'll never forget when I was sitting in his office. I was super nervous because I had only heard him on the podcast, and he was still a celebrity to me at that time. And the only thing he said, he's like, "If you made it this far, I just got to make sure you're not an asshole. And if you're not an asshole, you're probably still going to get the job." And so I'm like, okay. And here we are.
Hey, everyone. Big news. Investify has now partnered with RentRedi. And yes, we've partnered with RentRedi because that is the software system that both me and Zeona use to do property management for our rental properties. It makes things super easy. We can send applications, get background checks and credit checks. Tenants, when they come in, can pay rent automatically through there. They can submit maintenance requests, do everything you need to do for property management all in one place. That's why RentRedi is the thing that we've done. I've been using them for years now. And that's why we reached out to them for a relationship on the show. And so again, super excited to have them on board. If you go to rentredi.com and use the code Investify, you'll get 50% off your first 6 months. That's right. 50% off your first 6 months. If you go to rentredi.com, sign up and use the coupon code INVEST2FI. And can't wait to see you there. Let us know, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on wherever, and let us know what you think of RentRedi. Because again, I think it's an amazing software. I use it all the time. You can access it from your phone. Amazing stuff. So thanks so much. And let's get back to the episode.
Josh Dorkin, welcome to the show, the co-founder of BiggerPockets. Is that right? As the door opens up behind me, Josh comes in with it.
I thought this was a serious interview, but you start with.
So, as many of you may or may not know, Josh here probably needs no introduction as the founder of BiggerPockets, but commonly known as the co-founder.
So, Josh, why do you even common? I don't even know.
I don't know. Josh, you did something pretty incredible where you brought yourself out of the business so much that people forgot that you even founded it. So that's a good thing. I think a lot of us want to be there.
Yeah.
But why don't you kick it back and tell us where it all started, right? Let's hear the founding. Bring it way back,
let's get past the awkward intro and
Oh, you have, this isn't even the intro. You're not even going to hear that until it comes out. So
Z is just cringing here.
Yeah.
as
Craig's
Craig
jokes are not funny.
digs himself. Yeah, take the foot out of the mouth.
Yeah.
So what do you want? What do you want me to talk about? You want to dive into like where this journey began?
yeah, where it all started.
I mean, I would say I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My parents both worked for themselves. My grandparents were entrepreneurs, and you know, pretty much everybody in my family that I knew was some form of entrepreneur. So was it in the DNA, whatever it is, right? I grew up around it. I never really thought about it. We didn't talk about it. It wasn't a conversation. Hey, one day you're going to be in the business. You're going to run the business, or you're going to run a business. It was just, that's exposure, right? I think the first time I thought about, the idea of financial independence or entrepreneurship was rifling through a bookstore, and I was with my brother, and we're looking at the magazines, and we're supposed to be looking at sports magazines or something, and I walk and I see this magazine that talks about the richest people it was either in America or the world. It was Forbes. It was the richest list. And I was like, oh, this sounds cool. Let me check this out. And I started flipping through it, and next thing I knew, I had read the magazine while standing there, loitering, and was enthralled. And it wasn't as much these are the richest people in the world. It was more, wait, these people kind of solved a puzzle, right? They figured out how to go from, what most people know of as, some idea to some conclusion where they've got this raging success. And for me, the one that always stands out was the potato guy. I don't remember his name, but the guy...
The potato guy. He really stood out, huh?
We'll call him Mr. Potato Head.
Mr. Potato. No, this is a guy who had a potato farm and was the initial supplier of potatoes to McDonald's. And, I don't remember the story at this point, but ultimately, he did a deal with Ray Kroc and started supplying potatoes. And as McDonald's grew, he grew. And it was like, oh, wow, this whole thing can scale. As life goes on, you can scale a business, you can grow a business, and all you need to do is solve a problem. And it could be a problem for one person, like, hey, McDonald's needs somebody to give them potatoes, or it can be, hey, there's an infinite group of potential real estate investors who can't get access to information without paying, some get-rich-quick guy, which, ultimately was the problem that I ended up solving through BiggerPockets. But so I ended up buying that magazine, and then for the next bunch of years, anytime the Forbes list would come out of the richest whatever, I'd buy it and I'd read it, and I'd just start imagining, not that I was on the richest list again, but it was like, oh, how did that guy solve that problem? What did this guy do? Oh, what did this lady do? How did she? And it was fascinating. So that was like the genesis of my conceptualizing money, or at least how it works as an instrument.
So it sounds like you've basically boiled it down to figure out a problem, solve that problem, and the more people that you can help solve that problem, the richer you're going to be, or the more money you're going to make.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe that is correct. That was not, again, for me, that was not a goal. It was never a goal. That I guess that proceeded to, now, mind you, I grew up in New York, right? Growing up in New York City, like, that's the finance capital of the world, or at least at some point it was. And so everybody talks about money. Everybody thinks about money. I ended up interning at a stockbroker and I ended up becoming a stock trader for a while. Money was kind of like, it was just in everyone's DNA. That just is what it is. That's what people talk about. That's what they think about. It's weird. It's kind of gross, actually, but it really is part of that culture. Ultimately, I ended up becoming a teacher. For a guy who grew up in this space, who was obsessed with money, I went through the entertainment business where I was doing really, really, I was a trash man, basically, right? I was a teacher. I taught special ed for 4 years. These are not things you do if you want to make a lot of money. And when I started my company, I did not make a lot of money for a very long time. And I see fingers going up left and right. Craig's picking his nose. Zeona's doing something. I don't know what's happening, but I know somebody wants to talk. So go on, do it.
Yeah. All right, Josh, will you just shut up for 1 second? No. No, I shouldn't have said that. Now he's not going to talk for the rest of the episode. So I kind of want to get the timeline figured out, right? So you grew up in New York, entrepreneurs. Then you were still in New York, looking maybe interning at a stockbroker, because money, you're seeing the green signs. But then you decide, were you kind of like pushing money away? Is that why you decided to go be the trash man, or were you wanting to be some sort of celebrity movie star or anything like that?
So I wasn't an actual trash man, but as a kid, I was a kid actor. So when I was 12, I never did anything, but I was a kid actor.
Were you the guy in the Oscar Mayer Wiener commercial? Is that how is that
in your
face?
dreams, buddy?
Yeah.
No, but that was, again, growing up in New York, it was just, that was around, right? Entertainment was also there. Man, I mean, we're bouncing around here, Craig. So I wasn't giving anything up. It was more, when I went to college, right? I went to school, and at school, I had gotten into the business school at my college, Washington University. Great school, had a blast, learned a ton. When I got there, I started taking my business classes, and they were fantastic. The only issue I had was the kids that I was in classes with were super cutthroat. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, is this how it has to be? If I'm going to go into the business world, like, are people really this bad to each other? And it's not like the kids were just like evil, right? But there was definitely like this, call it a mindset of I'm better than you, or I got to be better than you, or I have to cut the next guy down in order to be successful. And I hated that. In my mind, I always thought, you can be successful, I can be successful. We can all grow. Like, why does one person have to be cut down for the next person to go ahead and be successful? I think it's just like a false idea. I think it's nonsense. And so it turned me off big time. I ended up pulling out of the business school, going into liberal arts, bouncing around a little bit, getting a political science degree, and then realizing, oh, wait, I'm about to graduate college with nothing but a political science degree, so I'm going to be broke or in trouble here. Let me go back and get the business degree. So I went back and got the business degree, graduated in 4 years with both a poli-sci and business degree in marketing. And that, I think, was extremely valuable. Gave me a lot of tools, but yeah, I think, for me, again, it was this rejection of, we got to cut each other down. I never liked that.
So I'm curious, like, where real estate came into play, because I'm assuming before you taught people about real estate, you had to have some knockarounds in the business, right? So where did that get introduced into your life?
Real estate came into play in college, actually. I was in the business school. I was rooming with one of my B school buddies, and we were living in an apartment building of, what was there, 6 units, I think. And we would always, sit and just ponder, what if we just bought this building and instead of paying rent, what if we were to be the guy collecting the rent? And we could never in a million years imagine that we can actually afford to buy the building. And the fact is, we could have. We could have been creative. We could have come up with some methodology, some way to buy that building. Probably should have bought that building. But ultimately, we ended up just kind of daydreaming about it. And we would talk about it. And it wasn't until years later, my brother had reached out to me and said, hey, Josh, I just bought a bunch of buildings and, small multifamilies. And I'd love to tell you about it. And so that for me was the reawakening. It was like, oh, okay, wait, I forgot about this. Yeah, all right, let's dive into it. And at the time, I was teaching. Like I said, I was teaching in LA, and it was definitely something that intrigued me because it was always part of this concept that I wanted to bring into my life.
So when your brother brought you those deals, were you part investor in those, or were you just
no
sidecarring it basically? Just
no, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
No. He just showed me what he had done, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Show me the numbers. Oh, those are really cool. Wait, you just spent this. You put this much down, and that's all I have to do, and then I can collect rent. Oh, that's easy. Let me go and buy property. And so his wife was an agent, and so I flew back into town and started looking at properties with her. And in my head, it was buy the cheap property. Like, I don't have money. Let me buy whatever is cheapest, right? And so I did, and I bought cheap property in inexpensive neighborhoods that were not actually cheap or inexpensive. And I learned lots of lessons from buying not good properties in tough neighborhoods. And every problem you could imagine, I had to deal with.
So we have a lot of kind of first timers or people who just bought their first place and they're thinking about getting a second place that listen. And so I find it really valuable for us to like dig into that first one. And so I don't even know if you'll remember all the details about it, but can you tell us like what year it was, maybe what you spent on it, where it was?
Oh boy. All right. I mean, this was, oh my God, 20 something years ago. I think it was $85,000 for a triplex. I ended up converting the tri into a 4 because I don't remember how we did it, but we were able to convert this 3 into a 4. And I was 2,000 miles away, living in Cali. This was in Missouri, and it was hard. It was hard. I was relying on other people to do everything. The only boots on the ground were mine when I went to look at it, and I had to trust folks to have my best interests. And unfortunately, I did not connect with the people that had my best interests early on, and so I remember the constant evictions. I mean, we must have evicted, in that one building, I probably over 2 or 3 years, I must have evicted 6-7 people. I mean, it was a nightmare. I remember I walked in, I was like furious, like all this drama was going on. I walked in and went to look at one of the units, and somehow on a solidly built building, there was a giant hole big enough for a large human to fall through in the kitchen floor. Like, how does one produce a hole in the kitchen floor large enough for a large person to fall through? I don't understand it. Yeah, like, how is that done? I had vacancies where we had drug addicts would break in and live in the vacant units. We had people in buildings next door tapping into the electricity with wires. I had to put reinforced steel cages around all the AC units because those were getting still. I mean, it was a nightmare. Those are my fond memories. And then ultimately, a few years later, I ended up liquidating it to an investor who had boots on the ground and who did very well with it because he was able to actually keep his eyes on it and watch it, right? So I guess the lesson, and I know you both want to talk really bad, hands are waving, it's going crazy. But, the lesson, the takeaway is really, know what you're getting into. Be aware of what's possible. Definitely make sure you vet the people that you're working with, which I thought I had done, but I hadn't. And you want to have some boots on the ground and backup boots on the ground.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's our pitch to invest in real estate, right? I think
you too can get a giant man-sized hole in your kitchen floor. Buy real estate today
for just $84,000. No, but I think like a lot of the lessons learned there, Josh, is obviously one, you've got to make sure you've got a trusted team. I've got bitten by that too. I had an investment out in Jacksonville where I just picked the first agent, I picked the first contractor just to like check the boxes and make it easy. And I got totally screwed as well. And so was that kind of what you did? You kind of just picked the first people, or did you do your diligence?
I thought I did my diligence. I think the issue again was I was buying in not the greatest neighborhoods, and the property management who serve not the greatest neighborhoods tend not to be good, unfortunately. Not only are they not good in business in general, but they also tend to treat tenants terribly. And so it's actually two sides, two problematic sides when you're dealing with somebody who has disdain for the tenants and somebody who isn't good enough at business or doesn't care enough, whatever it might be, to best serve the landlords as well. And you can't, you can get by being a slumlord, but you're not going to grow. You're not going to thrive. You're not going to flourish by being a slumlord. You could put lipstick on a pig and flip a house and make money when the market's hot. And maybe the buyer won't care so much because they get something that kind of looks good. But, in weeks or months, when the house starts to have problems, it's always going to come back and your reputation's going to just take a dive, right? But again, a lot of people don't care. I've always encouraged people to focus on quality. You want to build a name for yourself. You want to build a brand for yourself in anything that you do, particularly in real estate. And the last thing you want to do is be, a crappy landlord, a crappy house flipper, just because you could make money. Because it'll work. It just won't work for a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally. I love that. And, one thing I gather from that is kind of a common phrase that I always hear. It's, you can buy the crappiest house in a nice neighborhood, but you should never buy a house because the house can take months. Neighborhood is going to take years and years. And so, those cheap houses are tempting because they're so cheap, but usually you're paying for it on the back end. It's kind of like eating junk food. Junk food, you ever notice how junk food is so much cheaper than healthy food?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. You're going to pay for that later when you're in the hospital and your hospital bills, and it's probably going to be a lot more than if you just bought the expensive healthy food in the first place. Z, anything to add there?
Yeah, I was just curious about the going forward of that. When you have such a nightmare property, how do you go, okay, cool, I'll just buy another one? What kept you in real estate? Okay.
I bought another one, and it was equally as bad. But I did it concurrently. That was the birth of BiggerPockets. Truly, I mean, it was I was struggling. I was really, really struggling, and I needed help. And I started looking at books, and I started looking at the magazines, and they were great. They told me how to buy real estate and how to evaluate. But they didn't tell me what to do when the guy next door is stealing my power, and they didn't tell me what to do when the guys, they started ripping the copper out. And what do you do when there's a large man-sized hole in your kitchen floor? I mean, they don't tell you those things. They don't tell you what to do when you walk into check out a unit, and the entire bedroom is piled with garbage, floor to ceiling. Like, the books don't tell you that, right?
Yeah.
And so, in college, I started building websites, and I realized that the answer to my problems were never going to be found in a book. Nobody's going to write a book. Maybe they could try, but that would be a really big book with every problem that can possibly happen and every possible solution to every problem that could possibly happen. And so, having had a history of building websites, I realized that this was a problem that I needed to solve for me. And so I set out to solve my own problem, which was, let me get feedback from other people to help me answer my questions, and let me kind of put together tools and resources that would help me get through this nightmare. And BiggerPockets was born.
Did it? What did BiggerPockets start as? Like, was it a site that you developed, or did you start it on like a Quora forum or?
Quora
whatever?
didn't exist. I don't. Yeah, Quora wasn't.
Was there anything that existed back then?
This is 18 years ago. There were a couple of real estate investment forums. When I went to those forums.
Are we talking like Yahoo groups or something?
No.
Ask Jeeves.
Are we talking about Yahoo? I mean, talking about black and white internet? Which, by the way, yes, I did get to experience that in the pre-graphic browser days, which the coolest thing ever, by the way, was the first time I saw the internet, which was at my brother's college in 1993, and we were able to get a weather report at a ski area somewhere across the country. And it was literally a line of text on a black background, and then the site it started as just a collective of resources, right? I started coding in HTML, and I was like, hey, let me just list, hey, where do I find properties? Hey, let me list property management companies. Let me put a list of, you name it, REO banks where I can find deals, and so I collated these resources. And I put them together, and then the forums, like I said, there were other forums out there in the space. What I had discovered about these forums, or at least my what I believed to be true, was that the purpose of these other forums was to really pitch courses and boot camps and things like that. And so, whenever I saw a question, I always felt like the answer was, oh, here's a little information. Oh, and let me sell you something, right? That might give you more. And I don't know. I just, I never liked that. I never liked that idea. It's a viable model. Everybody does it today across every industry practically. But I wanted something more pure. I wanted something that really democratized the information. I wanted people to get the real answers to the real questions and not have to, come back later and pay somebody to get pitched, to pay something to get a possible half answer, and then to be pitched to get another answer. And so really early on, it was kind of this like anti-guru type thing, this platform really designed to kind of bypass that world. And in my head, I said, hey, listen, what if we just allowed people to only give answers? And if people try and sell and people try and pitch, we're going to cut them off and say, you can't do that. And we're going to just remove their posts and force people to give answers. And so that's what we did. And I angered a lot of people. But ultimately, the community of real estate investors was like, oh, damn, this is cool.
Yeah, Josh, I think you did a really good job. Obviously, basically doing that. I know BiggerPockets was the first, I guess, part of real estate that I got into that I didn't feel like sketched out about. And I was like, oh, someone's trying to sell me something, or it felt like when you get on BiggerPockets is that people are answering your questions with authenticity, that they just want to help. They know that it comes full circle, and when you give, you'll get, and all that kind of stuff. But you never saw that in the posts. And I think, Josh, I think you were like the first, at least the first that I know of, that led with the like value first, figure out how to get paid later, right? Figure out how to make it later, because that's what my next question was, right? Is I know you started BiggerPockets in 2004, and how long did it take you how long was it when it was just you in your basement? I have this vision, which you're going to make fun of me for, but where like you're in your basement in your underwear with like Santa Claus underpants, like a bunch of Mountain Dews around the computer, and just like basically talking to yourself via BiggerPockets. Like, how long were you doing stuff like that for?
8 years.
8 years.
8
Wow.
years.
8 years.
Such a commitment.
The first two I was teaching. So the first two I did it during my free periods, nights, weekends. I had a 40-hour-a-week job, and I had another 40 to 60-hour-a-week job that I did in between that 40-hour-a-week job. And then after 2 years, I got married, quit my job, and went full-time building this business. It was lifestyle business first. At that point, my wife really, she risked a lot. Julie risked a lot by allowing me to not work and instead play on this website that I had built and cobble it together. And when I quit, I don't know how much I was making, but I was definitely making less than minimum wage. Years in. She was, on the day-to-day supporting us. I had saved a fair amount of money, so we had bought a house. We only lived on one car. We lived super frugal. We were super fire before fire was fire. We didn't. That concept didn't exist, but that's what we were doing. We were living cheap, building a business, hustling and struggling, with the goal that one day it would all be worth it. And it took a very long time. And I know you guys want to ask some follow-ups, but I'll dive in more afterwards.
Yeah, my big question here is like 8 years is a long time, right? I mean,
you are really good at math, dude. Oh my God,
it's a long time. Even for someone your age, it's a long time, right?
Did he just drop your age?
And you were younger back then, so it's even a longer time. And so, like, I guess, like, did you in that 8 year?
I'm sorry,
period,
Ziona. I'm sorry.
Josh is out. I've outsourced my apologizing to Josh, so he just you can apologize for me. But in that 8 years, Josh, like, did you ever feel like, will this work? Will it not work? Like, did you ever have those days of like, is it worth it? Am I gonna like? Did you think about giving up before it really got to that inflection point?
Oh yeah, I mean,
how do you push through that?
I would not say every day, but I would say absolutely constantly. I think by year, like call it 4 or 5, we were making enough money to have a pretty decent frugal life. Again, one car. We weren't really driving around too much, and we were okay. I mean, but we didn't vacation, we didn't travel, we didn't do anything to excess. Nothing was excess, right? I mean, it was just kind of getting by, but we were happy, right? We were having a good life. So I would say the struggle would come up every maybe couple of months or weeks or years, or anytime somebody would like do something really crappy, and I'd have to deal with like just a jerk on the platform, somebody who's just like wanting us dead, and so that would always get me to question, like, am I doing this? Why am I going through this? What am I dealing with? Year 8 was when I had a complete and total meltdown, which wasn't a complete and total meltdown, but I just broke down. I started crying and talking to Julie, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I had feigned my way through pretending to the world that we had this giant team of people. I mean, I wasn't lying. I would have various emails, and I would answer various emails, support at BiggerPockets, or, advertising at BiggerPockets. I was playing the role of 27 different characters every single day. And it was exhausting. And so I got to a point where I was like, hey, Julie, we've got, 100,000, 200,000 users. We've got, all this stuff going on. We're living, we're supporting ourselves, but I can't keep going. And I don't want to take on debt. I don't want to hire somebody through debt. I don't want to do this. I don't know what to do. So I ended up hiring a guy I knew in the real estate space, and hired him to consult me. Because the decision I was going to make was, do I quit? Do I sell the business? Or do I keep going? And I was close to quitting. I was really close to quitting. I was really tired, really worn out. I mean, I wasn't working a 40-hour week. I was working 80-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks, every single week. I did not take a vacation, And when you work an 80 to 100-hour week, that's not 5 days a week. That's 7 days a week. When my daughter was born, my first daughter, I worked in the hospital when she was born. When she was sick years later, I worked in the hospital while she was sick. I did not, in my mind, have the ability to take a day off. Now, reverse, of course I should have taken a day off. Of course I should have worked less. I mean, that was crazy what I did. It was outrageous how hard I worked. But I will say, having done that, I would not be where I am today had I not done that, right? So I had to learn the lessons the hard way, unfortunately.
So let's go to 2012, and you have that that lunch with your mentor or your consultant, and ultimately, how'd that conversation go?
It was a process. This was months of here's the platform, here's our data, here's our revenues, here's the yada, yada, yada. And then I flew down to Texas to hang out with him. And, for a week, we just deep dived into everything. And, we looked at, hey, I overbuilt these features. Let's kill these features off. Hey, I did this. Let's kill this off. Let's thin it down. Let's refocus, because I had lost focus. BiggerPockets went from real estate investing to all of real estate, and that was just too much at the time. It got a little bloated. And then ultimately, the big decision was, how do I move forward, right? And the answer to that question was, I've got to hire somebody. I've got to start entrusting. Now, mind you, I had hired contractors to help me code and do some support stuff. But at this point, it was time to let go of the reins a little bit, right? So the decision had to be, I've got to hire somebody. How do I hire somebody when we're making X amount of money and we are living on X amount of money? We're not living on 20% less than X amount of money. We're living on X amount of money. And so we had to take a dramatic pay cut at this point, year 8. And not that our life was bloated, it was not, far from it. But we had to take a dramatic pay cut and hire somebody, and hopefully that would pay itself off, which it did. So, I hired Brandon Turner, year 8 of BiggerPockets, not the co-founder of BiggerPockets, a guy who I hired on year 8.
Year 8, my gosh. You've really
8.
put in so much time before he came along. That's amazing.
And then we started to, little by little scale the business even more, but it was a fully functioning rocket ship by the time I brought in my first full-time employees. Now, I not to belittle Brandon, man, BP wouldn't be where it is today without Brandon, but BP was a viable entity that was crushing it when we brought on number 1 employee.
So I want to kind of just zoom out, because we probably don't have the time to go into all of the different lessons and everything, but what are some great takeaways? I know your life is probably forever changed having done this BiggerPocket project, and now you're kind of away from it. But yeah, what were some great lessons, maybe things you would have done differently that you can share
I
with
wouldn't have
people?
waited till year 8.
Yeah, that's a while.
I mean, I wouldn't have worked. Man, I could write many, many, many books on it. I think, you know, it was stuff that instantly comes to my mind. You know, it's work hard, but work smart. It's you can't work yourself into the ground. You know, find people that you trust. Put your head down, but, you know, trusting other people to be there to support you is valuable. People are going to take credit for your work, and, you know, you can't let that bother you. You know what you did. I would say, I think one of the biggest things, you know, today at least, that there's a lot of, it's funny how people behave. I'm sure you guys have gone through this yourselves, but, you know, when you come up with, when you start doing something that's outside of the realm of normalcy, the people that are in your family and your friend circle, you know, will say things like, why are you doing this? That's risky. That's weird. What, you know, hey, I found a penny on the street of New York. I'm going to mail it to you. You know, I mean, like, talk shit, right? I mean, like, and then when things start going well, they're like, oh man, I always had your back, you know, and so what I would say is, like, figure out who those people are early on, and figure out the people who are supportive early on, and double down on those people, because the other ones, I think, as you go on in your career, you know, will continue to have commentary and to continue to bring a negative influence into your life. And I could think of many of those people, and cutting ties with those people and being able to, you know, surround yourself with positivity is super important, because that stuff could drag on you hardcore. And it did for me, and was really trying. So I see you guys nodding your head, so I know I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, I mean, I think building any business, you really have to kind of figure out who supports you. And there's so many times along the way where you're like, is this something I even need to be doing? So I can really imagine that. I've never built something that big, but it's definitely a hard road to be an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Josh, I think you know the story of me sleeping behind the curtain and all that kind of stuff. And
It's the greatest story of all time.
It's definitely in the record books. But when I was in the midst of doing that, my grandfather, who I love and adore and have been taking advice from for my whole life, he basically took me aside and called me a miser, and thought that I would be, you know, basically living this cheap lifestyle my entire life and all these things. And that was like a really big blow for me. And, you know, a couple of years later, now he sees, oh, I get what you were doing. I get it. And so it was really nice for him to kind of, not that he ever left my life, but he recognized what he did. He apologized. And I just want to say that there's some people that are not going to be on your side, people that have been on your side your entire life. And to get ready just to, like, strap on that suit of armor, know that the path you're taking is leading to greater things, even if it doesn't look like it to other people. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like some great words of wisdom that we wrapped up with. So I think we should switch into our final part of the show. What do you think, Craig?
Let's do it. Let's head into the
final four.
All right. Z, kick us off.
All right, Josh, I know you're not prepared for this at all because you're just too cool. You're all celebrity status. We know about you.
Stop.
Yeah. So what are you reading right now? Do you even read anymore since writing all those books?
I wrote one book, not multiple. I'm reading. I'm not reading the businessy books. I'm reading kind of like the, you know, health and happiness and lifestyle books. I am in the middle of reading The Comfort Crisis right now, which is awesome. What is it, Michael Easter? Michael Easter, just triple checking. Fabulous book, just all about rewilding yourself and you know, getting uncomfortable, which I think is super important both for health and lifestyle. And frankly, if you're going to build a business of any sort, you better get ready for discomfort, because the overnight successes, they don't often happen. But it's a great book, The Comfort Crisis.
The Comfort
All
Crisis.
right,
what I'm
putting
reading.
it on my list.
Yeah. All right, Josh, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Come on the Craig Curelop show. I mean, the Zeona McIntyre show.
Yeah.
We're called Investify. Craig is just here for the looks, we just do a little mustache action.
It's the mustache, for sure. That's why I'm here.
Best advice I've ever gotten. Oh God, that's such a hard question. I'm gonna struggle. I could think of a million pieces of advice I've gotten, and no one piece of advice has actually done any. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say move to Maui. That's a good one.
That's part of taking care of myself. But yeah,
Okay.
2022, the world is hectic, and there's so many pressures, particularly in this instant gratification social media world that we are living in, and I think far too many people get caught up in the nonsense and get caught up in the FOMO and don't really stop and think about what actually matters. And what matters is you, and what matters is your family, and what matters is your health, and what matters is your happiness. And, money and fame and fortune, are flashes in the pan for almost everybody who attains them. And, the sustainability of happiness and health, really, that's all that matters, at least in my book.
Well, that's a great segue for question number 3, which is, what is your why?
125. I'm going to live to be 125.
Okay.
No, my why is my kids. My why is my kids. I want them to live in a world that's safe. I want to live in a world that they don't have to worry going to school that something's going to happen to them. I want them to live in a world where they can breathe fresh air, and they can be healthy and eat food that's not going to, we talked about it, right? And cheap food that makes them sick, right? I want them to eat healthy food. I want them to get out and have fun and laugh and exercise and not be glued to a machine, not be glued to a screen. I want them to experience the earth and the world. And that's my why. My why is my children and their happiness, and my children's children, and that's it. The rest of it doesn't matter.
I love it. The legacy. Josh, what is the most embarrassing moment in your entire childhood?
Oh, I was going to say being on the show, but
Not a
Are you
child
still a
anymore,
child?
young man.
I'm a child at heart. Let's see. Embarrassing thing in my childhood. I've got a lot. I've got a lot of stories. Okay, I think my parents' favorite story, which I think is a great story. We went into a hibachi restaurant. One of those places where they cook on the table. I don't remember how old I was. I think, I was probably 16 or something, and no, I was probably 6 at the time, and you'll get why later. So we're sitting down, I'm getting this amazing meal, and the chef is flipping, and the eggs are flying in the air, and everything's going, and it's amazing, right? Have you guys been to one of these restaurants where they cook on the table? Yeah. It's a blast, right? So we're having a great time, and my dad's like, hey, come on, I'm going to take you to the back and show you the back room. And so, my brother and I get up, and we follow him into this back room, and in the back room was like the sushi room, right? And they had this giant fish tank in this room. And it's like, check out the fish tank. And I walk up, I'm like, ew, look at all of its testicles. Shouted it out. Testicles. I meant tentacles. And everybody in the restaurant was cracking up, staring, laughing at me. And I didn't actually get what was happening until later when they explained it to me. But that was rather embarrassing. But it's a great story today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think those people all probably still remember you. So
they might. The Testicle Boy.
Testicle Boy. That might be your new nickname, Testicle Boy. Yeah. Awesome, Josh. Real quick before we go, we know that you built BiggerPockets. And obviously after Brandon came, a lot of other people came and it scaled up. Like, what are you doing now?
Today, I am working on my why. I mean, of course, right? Now, working on my why, I am focusing on just a lot of learning. I mean, outside of like work stuff, right? In terms of work stuff, I'm investing in real estate, primarily through syndicates. I'm investing in startups and advising some startups. So that's been a lot of fun for me, being able to guide young entrepreneurs. Beyond that, really just working on my health, trying to take care of myself, trying to get to, if not 125, trying to get through this crazy world and do it, in a way that feels good to me and is good for my family, and really trying to better the world for as many people as I can. So, whether that's supporting it financially or through social, being able to be supportive of those things that I think matter is pretty important in how I think about my days.
I love it, man. I love how you've just, you've used the platform, you've used your success, and now you're just truly kind of living the life that you want to live. You're doing what fulfills you and not doing anything that doesn't. And I think that's just it's a super intentional life. And again, I think it's going to be an inspiration. It's an inspiration for me. I know it's an inspiration for a lot of others. So thank you for all that you've done. Thanks for coming on the show. And
by the way, really quick, I mean, it's a lot of saying no, by the way. I mean, and I think, in my life, it's saying no to things like I said to you guys before we started, this is probably the first podcast I've done in 6 months, a year, maybe. I mean, I get asked a lot. I had to do this for the stash.
Oh, that's cute.
No, I mean, Craig was, I appreciated all you did for us at BiggerPockets, Craig, and I wanted to be here and be supportive of you, and so I'm glad to be here. But saying no to things and people that don't matter for me is super important, and I think everybody listening should probably heed that advice as well, because there's so many extraneous influences on us. If you kowtow to all of them, you'll never live the life you actually want to live. And if you want to hear more of my bloviating on whatever the heck I bloviate on, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at JR Dorkin on Twitter. But yeah, guys, I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that I made the short list, and thanks so much for coming on again, man. It's been good to see you, good to hear from you, and we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, Zeona. Thank you, Craig.
All right.
Bye.
See you, Josh. Enjoy your day.
And that was Josh Dorkin. Apparently, Craig doesn't know the cues today.
No, I guess I'm out of it. Maybe I'm the one that's microdosing.
Yeah, what I really liked that he said actually at the very end is I really liked that he was talking about saying no, because that's really been just a big theme for me lately. It's like as I'm paring down, really figuring out the things that bring me the most joy or that are directly connected to something I'm trying to achieve. And then all the extra that is so easy to get lost in, how we can kind of pare those things down, say no, and subtract it from our lives. So yeah, I thought that was some really good wisdom at the end.
Yeah, Josh, he's just like a testament to the entrepreneur, right? It's like your first few years, you're scrappy. For him, maybe a little bit longer than he wished. And then you start hiring help, you start to scale, you start to grow. And what he didn't mention, but what I know is that the business of BiggerPockets ended up running better without him there, which I think, it sounds like it's a diss, but really it's not. It's actually the biggest compliment, because to build something that runs better without you there means that you have successfully created a business, a passive income stream, right? Something that could make you allow you to have a happier and more fulfilled life without having to put in those hard hours. And I love that about Josh. I love how intentional he is about living his life. And he does it all through action too. Sure, he talks a lot and all that kind of stuff, but it's all through action. And yeah, again, there's not enough good things I can say about Josh.
Well, I love that. I can feel your bromance. It is shining through. But we got to go, Craig. This is the end.
We got to go. This is the end. And at the end, we always like to ask for please, any ratings and reviews on iTunes that you can give us would be greatly appreciated. It helps the show grow. It helps us get the word out to more people. So if you would, please leave us a rating and review and let us know what you think by DMing us on Instagram. I'm the Fi Guy, Zeona
McIntyre.
Don't
Don't make the joke, Craig. Don't make the joke anymore.
I stopped. We're taking a break from it this week. But great. Awesome, Z. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.